Hello, welcome back. This is Acts chapter 22. I'm Brandon Cunningham. A friend of mine told me I needed to say that more often. I don't know why, but you can go to brandoncunningham.com and sign up to get this in your inbox. We are going through the Bible book by book, and we've done Genesis, Exodus, and now we're wrapping up the book of Acts written by Luke. And we're going to see the authentic Saul. I've made a decision to start using Saul more than Paul because it's bothering me more and more that we've changed the name. We're going to see some of that in this particular chapter and how it just suddenly changes for no reason and no explanation other than now we know it's because we want to take some of the Jewishness out of it, or at least the translators did. So I'm going to read from the Complete Jewish Bible, and then I'm going to show you where some of the changes are that just kind of pop up all of a sudden. So chapter 22 of the book of Acts. Let's go. Brothers and fathers, listen to me as I make my defense before you now. When they heard him speaking to them in Hebrew, they settled down more. So he continued, I am a Jew born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city and trained at the feet of Gamaliel in every detail of the Torah of our forefathers. I was a zealot for God as all of you are today. And this was the best school, the best rabbinic school you could go to learn about the Torah, and it was hard to get into. So this gave him instant credibility with the Judean Jews, the hardcore Jews. I persecuted to death the followers of this way, arrested both men and women and throwing them in prison. The Kohen Haggadah and the whole Sanhedrin can also testify to this. That's the high priest. Indeed, after receiving letters from them to their colleagues in Damascus, I went on my way there in order to arrest the ones in that city too and bring them back to Jerusalem for punishment. As I was traveling and approaching Damascus around noon, suddenly a brilliant light from heaven flashed all around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why do you keep persecuting me? I answered, Sir, who are you? I am Yeshua of Nazareth. He said to me, and you are persecuting me. Those who were with me did see the light, but they didn't hear the voice of the one who was speaking to me. I said, What should I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, Get up and go to Damascus, and there you will be told about everything that has been laid out for you to do. I have been blinded by the brightness of the light, so my companions led me by the hand to Damascus. A man named Hananiah, an observant follower of the Torah, who was highly regarded by the entire Jewish community there, came to me, stood by me, and said, Brother Saul, see again. And at that very moment, I recovered my sight and saw him. He said, The God of our forefathers determined in advance that you should know his will. See the Zadok and hear his voice, the Messiah, the anointed one, because you will be a witness for him to everyone of what you have seen and heard. So now, what are you waiting for? Get up, immerse yourself, and have your sins washed away as you call on his name. Why would he immerse himself? Oh, to become ritually clean. So after I returned to Jerusalem, it happened that as I was praying in the temple, I went into a trance, and I saw Yeshua. Hurry, he said to me, get out of Jerusalem immediately, because they will not accept what you have to say about me. I said, Lord, they know themselves that in every synagogue I used to imprison and flog those who trusted in you. Also, that when the blood of your witness Stephen was being shed, I was standing there too, in full agreement. I was even looking after the clothes of the ones who were killing him. But he said, Get going, for I'm going to send you far away to the Goyim, the Gentiles, non-Hebrews. They had been listening to him up to this point, but now they shouted at the top of their lungs, Rid the earth of such a man. He's not fit to live. They were screaming and waving their clothes and throwing dust in the air. So the commander ordered him brought into the barracks and directed that he be interrogated and whipped in order to find out why they were yelling at him like this. But as they were stretching him out with thongs to be flogged, Saul said to the captain standing by, is it legal for you to whip a man who is a Roman citizen and hasn't even had a trial? When the captain heard this, he went and reported it to the commander. Do you realize what you're doing? The man is a Roman citizen. The commander came and said to Saul, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" "Yes," he said. The commander replied, I bought this citizenship for a sizable sum of money. "But I was born into it," Saul said. At once the men who had been about to interrogate him drew back from him, and the commander was afraid too, because he realized that he had put this man who was a Roman citizen in chains, and that was very, very much against the law. However, the next day, since he wanted to know the specific charge the Judeans were bringing against him, he released him and ordered the head Kohanim and the whole Sanhedrin to meet. Then he brought Saul down and put him in front of them. So I want to jump over to the New Living Translation real quick, and where it says that he was praying in the temple, and the crowds, they call him Saul at the very beginning. It says, when Jesus was talking to him, it said, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And the voice replied, "I am Jesus of Nazarene, the one whom you are persecuting." And then when we skip down to where he starts getting in trouble for this, it says, "But the Lord said to him, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles." The crowd listened until Paul said that word. Like, why would his name change all of a sudden just a few verses later? Because they want to say that once Jesus spoke to him, he was no longer a Jew. Now he's a Gentile. There was no reason for it. God didn't do it. Just translations did it. So that's one of the reasons I like to harp on that. I don't know why my nose is itching, but I really identify with those Jews that attacked Saul, because they had been told that Saul joined the enemy, the Gentiles, and was teaching other Jews to abandon their heritage and their traditions. So these are people who, quote unquote, were attacking the church. That's the way I felt. Saul began by using words that the martyr Stephen had used. Saul said, "Brothers and fathers." Brothers are speaking of a mutual heritage of Jews. I'm a fellow Jew. You're brothers of mine. Fathers, a vote in Hebrew, is speaking of the elders and important people. He presents his credentials. This tells the crowd that his doctrines, his halakha, was the same as theirs. This sect of Judaism called the Way was very well known. It had been around for about 25 years at this point. And the fact that Saul was a representative of the Sanhedrin is more proof of his devotion to Jewishness and to Judaism. So now that Saul made his case that he is not only one of them, but he is actually one of the most zealot people of followers of Judaism. He went and killed people that were trying to mess with it. So Hananiah was a believer and an observant Jew who followed the law. So in this chapter 22, we have Saul professing to be zealous for the law, and we have the man Christ used to tell Saul his mission, Hananiah, who was also zealous for the law. So Christ picked two people, one seriously zealot for the law and the other one seriously zealot for the law, both Jews. I think it's hard to find the book of Acts telling believers that the law is dead and irrelevant. Luke meant for us to see that Saul's commission was given by a pious, Torah-observant, believing Jew. That's why he included that fact. Hananiah was highly respected in the Jewish community in Damascus too. So Saul is told that he's going to be a witness to everything he has seen and heard. So Hananiah tells Saul to immerse himself. Get ready for this. Self-immersion was standard Jewish practice. Where we baptize people, we dunk them back then, and then the Bible, they just did it themselves. You had somebody observe it to make sure it was done right, but they didn't actually do it themselves. The people did it to themselves. So Christ is now the dominant force in Saul's life. And in verse 17, he includes the matter of the temple because he has been accused of speaking against it. So he includes it in his defense. Hey, I was in the temple when a lot of this happened. And God validates Saul's prayer by giving him that vision in the temple. See, the idea is that Saul would take means of salvation and deliverance to the enemy, Gentiles, non-Hebrews, and that a Jewish savior would be their salvation. And it was just too much for these people. There's just no way they want to include these horrible, horrible people, unclean people, the people that are oppressing them in their faith, in their church. I mean, how many times have you seen, we don't want them in our church. We want them to meet Jesus, but not around me. They're too dirty, too stinky, too whatever. I don't want them in our church, but I want them to know Jesus, just not around here. So Saul says that he was born into Roman citizen. This meant that his father was a Roman citizen. That was fairly unusual for a Jew. But remember, we talked earlier that Roman citizens were considered innocent until proven guilty. You weren't allowed to just flog them or imprison them. Now, the poor ones were not necessarily. There were two tiers of justice, kind of like we have in America now. So he put Saul into a cell without shackles and asked for the Sanhedrin to meet. Because he was the Roman commander, he could do that. He'd say, hey, wait a minute, something's going on. Y'all need to meet and explain this and figure this out. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem here. So that's chapter 22. I hope some of these details helped you understand it. And I hope you start using Saul's name as Saul, not Paul. And I think that'll open up some things when you read his epistles to think about his Jewishness in that context. God bless. Love God, love people, and change the world.